Flour. You can use it to bake bread or level a shed. Around the turn of the century, flour mills were a really dangerous place to work because they'd spontaneously explode. In fact, you can still go down to the Mill City area of Minneapolis and see the remnants of some of those mill explosions. Most people probably assume that with the exception of the gluten intolerant, flour is pretty harmless. But given the right conditions, it can be more dangerous than gasoline. And it's not just flour, it's any combustible dust. As many or more sawmills suffered the same fate as our ill-fated flour mills because sawdust is just as bad. Cocoa dust, coffee dust, powdered milk, sugar, even pollen, if given the right conditions, is a ticking time bomb. And how it does this is really actually comparable to gasoline. A lot of people don't know this, but gasoline in its liquid form isn't explosive at all. It'll burn, but it won't explode. But you know that your car runs by exploding gasoline. And you probably know somebody, or you are that somebody, who like to play with fire and are familiar with them taking a lighter to gasoline and it going woof and robbing them of their eyebrows. And that's because, well, liquid gasoline isn't explosive, its vapors are. And those vapors are just tiny particles of gasoline saturating a large volume of air. For all intent and purposes, for this example, gasoline vapors and fine combustible dust are the same thing. You have a bunch of little tiny particles spaced out well in the air that have lots of access to oxygen. And then you add an ignition point, a spark, or a flame, and it sets off a chain reaction that very rapidly burns all of those vapors or dust. And all an explosion is just something really rapidly burning. What happens in places like flour mills and sawmills, back before they figured out effective ways to control the dust, these mills, just by products of being a mill, would completely fill up with dust. And then when Bill decided it was time for his smoke break, or one of the machines made a spark, then there was no more mill. Anyway, I stole some of Emily's flour out of the pantry. And we're gonna do a don't try this at home, this is for scientific purposes only, flour mill explosion. So we're gonna start by dumping a bunch of flour on the ground here. Then we're gonna put this 5-gallon bucket over the top and use the air compressor to make some flour dust and make a little ignition trail source so I don't blow myself up. Well, that was not as exciting as I was hoping it was going to be, but you get the picture. And Google has a lot more exciting examples in my lackluster science experiment here. Anyway, the lesson here is if you're ever doing something that creates a lot of dust, make sure you've also got a lot of ventilation. Because explaining how your garage beat Bezos to space as a result of your new woodworking hobby you picked up on TikTok is an awkward conversation to have with Jake from State Farm.